Hello there and welcome back to The Closet Historian and back to my series Side Hustling, where I talk about the behind the scenes of trying to become a YouTuber, which has weirdly enough kind of worked out. So I still can't believe that. And if you've watched this series from the beginning, thank you for being here with me for a long time and or just watching my story from the start. It is still shocked to me that I've reached this point, and it is only because of Patreon that I can continue doing what I do, so thank you so much to my patrons. This year I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. Normally at the end of the year / beginning of the year I do a video covering how I did on my goals for the year before and then talking about my goals for the next year. But because things are rather intertwined and overlapping, I'm just going to be making one video this year and I'll cover it all within this one episode. And I did just want to make a little note here at the start saying this is just my personal review of my own insular, very I get stuck in my own head a lot, review of 2023, my year. And I know that many people had a far worse 2023 than me. I know there's a lot of destruction and violence going on worldwide that I'm privy to as an outsider, as an observer, and just going through my own footage and watching back what I had to say about my 2023. It just seems very silly and trivial compared to the magnitude of the things that most people have been facing out there. This is just my little personal recap of the last year. And I just wanted to have a disclaimer and say I understand that my problems are very small. My little frustrations for the last year are very trivial compared to what is going on in the world. And I think we all need to keep in mind what's going on a more global scale, because it's I know I'm very lucky to have a roof over my head, to be in a safe environment, and I'm never going to be taking that for granted. Even if little things may frustrate me, I know I'm very lucky. And so I just wanted to say that here at the start before I start complaining as per usual. Look, I had a lot of goals last year. And, there is one that I completed with absolute certainty. And that is that I finished my sleeve. So, I got myself some flowers here, as we know. And I recently put a nice Spanish moon moth and some other spider webs and stuff on my arm. So my arm is done. That was one of the sillier goals I had from last year, but turned out to be the most achievable one. And of course, the hippopotamus in the room is that my main goal for this last year was to buy a house, and as we can see, I'm in the same room as usual, so that didn't happen. And really, this is very simply explained, because while I had been saving for a down payment and was getting quite close to my goal, I had a little bit further to go, and then I was going to start looking at houses in late spring, summer of this last year. And what happened was that then I got my tax bill, and some of my nice savings for my down payment disappeared, had to be sent to the IRS. Now that makes me sound incredibly irresponsible, but I had been paying my quarterly taxes. I hired a tax guy, the last couple of years, because having a job like this one, I'm no accountant, So having a job like this where I'm self-employed, work for myself as a YouTuber, get paid mostly through Google, aka YouTube, and then of course Patreon, I didn't know how I was supposed to figure all of that out, so I hired a person who does taxes for their job. Now, they had me making estimated quarterly payments in 2022, which I did on time, no problems there. The problem was that they miscalculated what those payments should be. I owed a lot more money than I was hoping. I was hoping maybe if it was a little bit off, I would owe $500. Add a zero to that situation, at least. And then, of course, I owed more in state tax as well than we had thought. So I ended up having to make a very hefty bite out of my down payment to pay off extra tax stuff that I didn't know was going to be hitting me, which probably was something I could have absorbed if I hadn't already planned my trip to London as well. So I could kind of afford one or the other, but both were gonna happen. So right before I left for London, in fact, the morning I was supposed to leave for London, I got a call from my tax person telling me that I owed several $1,000s, and that I needed to make my first quarterly payment for 2023 that same day. So I owed a couple $1,000s for 2023, several $1,000s for 2022, and then another $1,000 to state as well. So that all was happening. I had to pay all that off out of my down payment fund, basically out of my savings for the house the day I was supposed to be leaving for London. Then I went to the airport, sat there for 5 hours. My flight got canceled and I had to come home and come back a few hours later to actually fly to London, missing my first night there, which meant I also, to add insult to injury, had paid for my first night in my hotel in London for no reason because I wasn't there. So I guess British Airways really owes me a vacation sometime, because they really The tax thing was already going to put a downer on the whole trip, but then having to miss my flight my first day there really did not help. So it was quite a start to my London vacation this year, which I did have an amazing time, but it was tempered by all of this happening right before I left, because a sizable chunk of my down payment suddenly disappeared and went to the IRS instead. But that also meant that my dream was not happening last year. And I would say that put a damper on my trip, but really it put a kind of shadow over my whole year in some ways, because it was, my main goal, my thing I was most excited about for 2023 was to buy a house and to move. And because I had this sizable chunk come out of my down payment fund, I knew it just wasn't going to be possible if I still wanted to put 20% down on a house, which is something I really want to do. I'm not looking to buy a very expensive house. I feel like I've said that before. But at the same time, I do want to I don't want to get myself in over my head and put too little down on a house and have my mortgage payments be really high, especially because being a YouTuber feels very, like they could pull the rug out from under you at any time. So it would scare me to have like a very large mortgage payment. So I want to make sure that I have enough to put down so that I don't have to get myself into any sort of a sticky situation. I dove into 2023 thinking something was going to happen, getting really excited about it. And then quickly, with one little email, everything got kind of taken away very suddenly. And I was in a very lucky and privileged position. I have somewhere to live that I don't have to pay for. As we know, I'm living with my family, so I could keep, of course, living here this last year and keep saving up for the house once again, kind of starting, two steps forward. Felt like 3 steps back, but it was really only a step and a half. I just had to save up that 1/3 of my, down payment, basically, again, after having it rudely ripped away from me. And then, of course, I had to make larger payments this last year just because I don't want this to happen to me again. But at least now I kind of am prepared mentally and don't have a trip to Europe planned around tax season, so that if this were to happen again, at least I have some sort of a, plan B going on here so that I don't have my house dream ripped away from me a second time. And it always really has been a dream and something that has felt unachievable and unbelievable. So really it's like it was a surprise and a hit to have the possibility that I'd be moving this last year taken away. But at the same time, it didn't feel that unusual, because I have been waiting for so long to be out there independent on my own and in my own space that waiting another year, it felt like getting punched in the gut, but not that surprising in the end, I guess, in some ways, because it feels like I've been waiting for so long. What's another year? So yes, if you've been wanting the official update on why I keep talking about moving and yet not moving, or why I keep talking about getting excited for house hunting and yet haven't been house hunting, it's because I was supposed to do this all last year and it got ripped out from under me a little bit. So, I'm only pretending to know how to adult like most people. So, I figured you save up your little nest egg or whatever it's called, and you go out and you buy a house. But apparently, even when you are lucky enough to be able to do that, it's just not that easy. I don't know. I don't think I was in the best headspace this last year after that happened. I didn't really get time to think about it because I, again, had to get on a plane the same day that this kind of happened and fell apart, and I had to pay this huge tax bill and kind of come to terms with the fact that meant I wasn't going to be buying a house this last year all on the same day while waiting to get on a plane. And because I had that trip planned, I really tried to make the most of being there in London and trying to not let it bring me down. So I was really just pushing past, trying my best to not think about it and still have a good time while I was in London, especially because at that point the money was spent. The hotel was booked, the flights were booked, everything. That money that I should not in the end have spent had been spent. So, and I do love London, and it does refuel me in so many ways. So I tried to still let that be true, even though I had this major disappointment right before I left. And I never really, because I had to get back into work right when I got back from London, and I have been making things ever since and trying to keep the channel, going, obviously, because it's my job. And, obviously it's where I find a lot of creative fulfillment in my work that I do as well. I haven't really slowed down a lot this year, other than when I've gotten sick or something, or been forced to physically slow down. And I still don't think I've really let myself come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be moving. And I just kind of just been pushing because I knew it's just a little delay. It's just a little delay. A year seems like a big delay now that I'm sitting here a year later. But the difference between right here and where I was last year is last year I still needed to save a little bit more. And now I am in a place where I'm going to start looking in the new year. So I'm going to be looking at towns, cities, places on the East Coast, and probably start going out to the East Coast and investigating, like, do I even like Syracuse, New York? Who knows? Do I even like, I don't know, is Springfield, Mass a nice place? A lot of houses come up in Springfield, Massachusetts. Is it nice? Anyone? Anyone nearby? Springfield, Massachusetts. How do we feel? Another place that they seem to come up, New London, Connecticut. Anyone been to New London, Connecticut? Let me know. These are my 3 top places right now. Of course, Albany is in the running, or places near Albany, but it seems almost too big of a city, if you know what I mean. So we'll see. So I could deal with my complicated disappointment from things not working out last year, or I could just push on and be pleased that they're going to happen this next year, again, barring strokes of lightning. But I really, really hope it happens for me this next year, because there's a lot. I feel like for a long time, I've been waiting for my real life to begin. I know it sounds silly, seeing as I'm 32, so I think I'm in the middle of it. But I've been waiting to kind of put myself out there again. I've been waiting to, like, in the sense of, like, I need to make some friends. I need to make some IRL people. I would love to have some sort of community IRL. Of course, I have community here online, and it's really nice to be able to connect with people who have similar interests as me, but I don't have anyone in my life. I only have, like, one friend here locally in Denver who I have a lot in common with, and she's busy too, so, you know, it's hard to get face-to-face connection for me. I think I've been isolated from people in general so much, just from, I live in a very suburban, very, like, Levitt Towny sort of place where there's not a lot of, like, arts and culture going on in the town I live in the suburb of Denver that I live in. And I spend so much time working from home and kind of insular in my work in my office. And I need, I think, some people in my life, or at least I need to try it. And I've been kind of waiting to invest time because it is something that would take time away from the other things I need to get done in building a community or inserting myself into a community and hoping for the best, because I knew I was going to move and I don't know where I'm going to move, and it seems silly to try and, you know, make friends here right before I go anywhere. And it seems silly to try and find a therapist here before I go anywhere. And in general, I've just been waiting until I'm in my new place, waiting for that geographical cure before I really start living again, finally. And I think I had a goal to make less than 50 garments in this last year. And as I'm recording this, I actually don't know because I haven't counted it up yet. I'll put the total of things I made this year here. So whether that's over or under 50, I don't even know. I anticipate it's probably around that, if not over. I once again overworked myself this year. I once again did not get the kind of time to devote to writing that I wanted to this year. It's not unusual for me. If you've been here for a while, you know that I don't give myself enough time to work on my other creative pursuits, mostly because I love what I do when it comes to sewing and creating and embellishing and beading and all these other things. I love doing it, so it's hard to get to stop. But I definitely notice when I haven't extended myself into writing, because in some ways writing for me is a big emotional outlet because I don't have a ton of people to talk to in my life. I don't have a therapist. I don't have a ton of people to communicate with. And so in some ways I kind of communicate through and in with my characters. So when I haven't spent a lot of time writing, usually that means I've just been bottling up and not really feeling human emotions sometimes because I just need to get things done and I don't have time to be sad or disappointed or angry or whatever. Like I feel like I'm pretty even keeled, but it's possibly because I don't usually let myself feel all the things. So I kind of gets poured into my writing more so. And so if I don't let myself write, then I kind of dip into like more of a gray space, which of course is not helped really by PMDD, which really is probably the main culprit of any dips that I have, because of course every month that comes for me. And then also I have a hard time, like if my, writing break that I finally scheduled in happens to coincide with when my progesterone and whatever serotonin is not at the correct levels, it makes it hard to write because I'm not thinking at the level that I want to be in some ways. So it's hard to schedule in writing time in that way. So I think I probably have to think about it differently and just have to kind of pause other work when I'm in the mood to write and then get it done when I'm not in the mood to write, which is less structured than how I've always done it. But at this point, just understanding how my brain and body work and how, I guess, my creativity ebbs and flows, both in the sense of writing and in the sense of the physical things I make. There has to be a different sort of balance in place. So new things probably have to be trialed in general. In so many ways, I have everything I could ever want because I have my dream job and nothing can really top that or touch that. But the truth is, I did not achieve 90% of my goals for 2023. But I do feel like I'm in a good position to achieve those goals this next year instead. And what is one more year stuck in your parents' basement when you're 32? So, thank you for listening to my rambling review of 2023. Basically, was I in the best headspace? No. Did I get to buy a house and move? No. Did I get less work done? No, not really. My work-life balance is still as messed up as it has always been, but I did get my sleeve finished. So I guess I'll just take what I can get out of this last year and move forward and do the best I can to keep staying positive about what's going to happen for me going forward. I know I'm in, again, such a lucky and privileged position to be able to save for a house, even if it takes me longer than I initially expected. It's kind of silly to think that you can save up for a house in just a couple of years anyway, but because I'm looking to buy a cheap house, that helps. I'm definitely looking to buy something that's way under the United States average, and people keep saying, move to California, move to Oregon. I'm like, guys, we can't do West Coast prices. We're definitely in slightly middle of nowhere prices, so I'll try and get as close to a city as I can, but we'll see. So yes, I remain unset on where exactly I want to move. I don't really have a major preference. I've never been to any of these places where these sorts of houses I want come up. I know the kind of house I want. I know the kind of project I want. I don't know where exactly I want to live. There are certain things I am looking for. There are certain things that are non-negotiables for me. I want to live in a state where I feel like my rights are somewhat protected compared to others, because in the United States, there are varying degrees of safety for being, for example, a female identifying person and being a LGBT plus person, being ace and queer like I am. There are certain environments where I just would not feel at all safe, or I'd feel like, at least I would like to, even if, most areas in the United States are quite purple, but I would like to feel that at least the government of the state I'm in would back me up on having some rights. So there are states that I'm just not looking at, because I'm sure there are nice pockets. I'm sure there are nice places and nice houses there, but I just would not have an overall tent feeling of safety in a place where I felt like I could not, I wasn't supported on a state level, I guess. And I think there are also probably states that I should be looking at for who has the best self-employment tax, because I'm a self-employed person in the sense that I'm a YouTuber. So I'm sure there are some states where I'd be paying a lot more and a lot less. That doesn't really matter to me as much. I don't mind paying taxes. Ironically, in this video where I talked about how having to pay tax kind of ruined my year, I don't actually mind, as long as I know what's happening and can plan in advance. It's just the surprise paying several $1,000s in taxes that I don't like. Some places have higher property taxes and stuff too. That's something I'm looking at, but it's not a main factor in my decision making. I'd rather be if I can, wager it, if I could find my perfect situation and just have a house up here, I would love to be in a town, a smaller-ish town, not a tiny town, but a smaller-ish town that still has a Target outside of a bigger city, 25, 30 minutes outside of a city. That's kind of how I am here in Denver. I'm about 30, 40 minutes outside of Denver. So if I need to go into Denver, if I want to have, if I want to go see a ballet, if I want to go to some of the different shops that are downtown, I can, restaurants downtown, things like that, but I'm still not in a bustling big city myself. And obviously, as I've been stuck in the modern burbs for a very long time, this is not the kind of environment I'm looking for. So I would rather be downtown in a small town, if that makes any sense. And that does tend to be where the older homes are anyway. So I'm looking at houses that are built, before 1930, really. If I find something that's a really amazing revival, I wouldn't, I would obviously make an exception, but I'm looking at Victorian, Edwardian era properties, maybe dipping into the 1920s if something is spectacular again. But looking at older homes, I want something that already has the big stuff done. I don't want to be putting in a new $20,000 roof. That's just not in the budget. I can't really do, maybe we can update a furnace, but I can't do a whole new HVAC system kind of a thing. I'm perfectly happy to DIY, to demo a bathroom, to refinish some floors, that kind of thing. But I'm mostly looking for cosmetic upgrades. I'm not looking for a boards like from the studs. Fixer, I can't do that budget-wise, and I can't do that work-wise just because I have a lot of work to do on my actual job here. So sometimes people will say, have you seen this bargain? And it's like a $40,000 house. Usually if a Victorian is $40,000, it's because they know it needs $400,000 worth of work. And sadly, that is just not in my budget either money-wise or time-wise. And luckily, once I start kind of going above my budget, what's happened is that the houses have been gutted. So it's like, it'll be a gorgeous Victorian on the outside, and then someone has made it a grayish, minimalist, open floor plan inside and has already done the renovations. And of course, that is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a place that still retains its original character, some woodwork inside, some quirky things inside that I can work with and either add to or modify to kind of create my dream Gothic jewel box. And of course, DIY and decorating and turning something into my dream space is something I want to share with you. So hopefully that will be coming later in the year once I am in a new space and kind of have settled a little bit. I don't know how long that will take to both find a place I like, find a house I like, and then of course move across the country, move my cats across the country. Don't even know how I'm going to do that. If any of you have recommendations for how to move your pets across the country safely for everyone, let me know. But essentially, my biggest goal for 2024 remains the same as it was last year in 2023. Not much has changed, and I do know this is a huge goal and a huge project, and it's going to eat up a lot of my time, which is when I started getting worried about how I was going to keep up my schedule here on the channel and on Patreon. I do make 5 videos a month, usually 4 here on the channel, sometimes up to 5 here on the channel, and then I do an additional video, a pattern drafting and sewing or just pattern drafting video over on Patreon every month. So I do 5 videos a month, which is, no trouble at all usually for me, but it might be trouble when I'm flying back and forth to the East Coast, traveling, moving, who knows what. So I was talking about this with my patrons. I do a monthly podcast update over there on Patreon. And I was talking about this with my patrons a little bit, talking about how this was, making me stressed. And then I had an idea that I could maybe, because I have on Patreon, I've been doing Patreon for several years now, I have lots of videos built up from making another video every month for the past couple of years now. So I have lots of video content over there, and I asked them if it would be okay if I released some of those Patreon exclusive videos, some of the older videos from Patreon here on the channel to be able to keep content coming in, new stuff, fresh stuff here on the channel for all of you, and then be able to keep my sanity as well. And luckily, because my patrons are extremely understanding and kind people, obviously, since they support me and are the reason I can keep doing this job in general, they said that I could release some of the older Patreon videos onto the channel. So that is what's going to be happening this year. I will be trying to keep this to like one archive or Patreon video every 5 to 6 weeks or so, maybe here on the channel. That's kind of my plan as of right now. Of course, if I don't have anything to upload because I've been like stuck in Connecticut all week or something, then I will probably be releasing an additional like Patreon archive video for you all. It's kind of a bummer for patrons because they've already seen this stuff, but some people maybe haven't seen some of the stuff from the start. So we'll see how it goes. Some videos are obviously going to be me talking about, like during the voiceover, I'll be talking about like topical things for 2020. So hopefully you can forgive me for that one. But this just seemed like a good solution for me to be able to keep the content wheel a-turning here for the algorithm here on YouTube while still being able to keep my sanity this year as I am house hunting. And of course, the furnace has come on. And thank you, as always, so much to my patrons in general because they make my work and my life and this side hustle, now my main hustle, possible. With YouTube alone, again, behind the scenes, there's no way I could do this as a full-time job with just the YouTube income because I don't do sponsorships, because I do try and keep ads to a pretty much a minimum as I can. I don't make the majority of my income is not made on YouTube itself through Google AdSense or anything like that. It is, I am a fan-supported channel. This is like a PBS model. I'm supported by my patrons mainly. They're the reason I can keep doing this, and I can think about adding in even like more projects in the future and think about doing more things. Just like my very favorite program of all, the Antiques Roadshow. I am brought to you by viewers like you. In summary, the dream was delayed, and now hopefully it is still happening. Stay tuned and we'll find out if any of this actually happens this year. I'll try and update you more throughout the year. I was really bad about sometimes you just don't want to talk about yourself and your own little frustrations like this because it does seem so trivial. So, I didn't do a lot of side hustle and updates over this last year because I was overworking myself partially so I didn't have to think about anything. Works really well when you just keep your hands busy and hopefully your brain can be thinking about sequins or something instead of all the stuff going on both in your own life and outside of it. So sometimes I overwork myself purposefully or like subconsciously in a way in order to not have to think about things. And in some ways, I think that's part of why I didn't share as much behind the scenes and personal stuff this year here on the channel, other than me rambling on while I'm sewing stuff, because we all know I should be focusing on telling you what I'm doing, but sometimes I'm talking about the most random stuff while trying to insert a zipper. Thank you so much for sticking with me throughout this video and throughout this last year, supporting me here on the channel. I really cannot thank you enough for giving me a job I didn't even know was possible. I'm kind of a fashion designer, I'm kind of a sewing teacher, and that's all only because you watch the videos, you support me here on the channel, and you keep showing up for me, and there's no way I can truly really thank you for that, so thank you. And in addition to that archive content that'll be coming out over the year, I do have some really exciting projects coming up too, and very exciting materials here to get started using in the office. I'm going to try my best to keep my, normal sort of output for you all. So as always, I'll be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, and crafting real soon. So I'll see you then. Bye. And an additional huge thank you to all of my conservator level patrons: Alice, Alicia, Amy, Audra, Beatrice, Brianne, Che, Cheryl, Concetta, Karina, Dan, Denise, Elizabeth, Ellen, Eloquent Silence, Emily, Evelyn, Jambonium, Carol, Kara, Lainey, Lilith, Linda, Lynn Hamilton, Lynn Olson, Maggie, Margaret, Megan, Myrna, Nancy, Natalie, Nina, Rachamis, Rhonda, Sean, Stephanie, T-Bells, Thea, Tom, Ula, and Zara. Thank you so much for your support over this last year, and thank you to all of my patrons and to all of you who watch these videos and keep not only my work alive and keep me going here on the channel, but also keep my dreams alive and going, and for that I can just not thank you enough.